Hello again, everybody, and welcome to another exciting episode of Random Vlogging! Um, Today, I am going to talk about something that, I'm not 100% happy about talking about. But the reason I'm going to mention it today, is because it has been affecting me for the past few weeks. And it's one of the reasons why my vlogs have been coming out at bizarre times, and it's one of the reasons why I didn't do any vlogging last week, other than the real short one I did on Sunday. Um, and that is let's let me tell you a story. Way back when I was in college the first time. Had quite a few bad things happen to me, one after another. Wife of a friend died. Found out my girlfriend had been cheating on me for well over 6 months, probably closer to a year, maybe a year and a half, of a 2-year long relationship. So a majority of the relationship, she was cheating on me. And a lot of other things, just one after another, after another, after another, after another, and I was getting to a real bad place. Um, and that's when I had this thing happen to me. I call it just losing time. What it is basically my brain gets to the point where it's trying to process so much information from my own body overreacting to things and my depression acting up and all that, that it stops accepting new information long enough for it to process the information it already has. What that turns into is I lose periods of my day. I have no idea what the rest of my body is doing at that time. But I don't like walk around or like what it feels like to me is like I can look at a clock, sit down to do something, and I remember the most vivid time that it happened, and the time that I realized I had a rather serious problem. Um, I was sitting at my desk in my dorm room and I was working on a paper. I remember looking over at the clock and it was like 2 something. And then I got, and it was just a homework assignment. And I got like 1 or 2 questions done. I looked over at the clock and it was after 4. Um, and I didn't spend a lot of time on these questions. Like in my mind, I spent like maybe 2 or 3 minutes tops on each of these questions, but somehow time jumped about an hour and a half to 2 hours. Um, and I couldn't figure out why. It wasn't like time was passing faster. You know those times when you kind of lose track of time and you're like, wow, man, time really passed fast. Um, it didn't pass fast. It just jumped. I had portions of my life I couldn't remember. And that's when I realized I had a real problem. I went to my doctor and he diagnosed me with depression. Um, the first drug that they put me on for it was a drug called Effexor. I'm not sure what the actual medical name, that's the brand name. My understanding is there are a lot of people that are on it and it does wonderful, amazing things for them. I'm not trying to tell people that drugs for depression, stuff like that, are bad. There are a lot of people that they do wonderful, amazing things for. And if you are on one of these medications or you go to your doctor and they suggest putting you on one of these medications, talk to your doctor, try it out. I did. They didn't work for me. What Effexor did to me, one of the side effects that it mentioned was, I can't even remember what the actual term on the box was, but my doctor told me, it might make you feel a little bit fuzzy and mess with your head a little bit, which its job is to mess with your head. It's to help you get your neurotransmitters getting normalized. That's what it's supposed to do. One of the side effects is it affects other aspects of your brain, and it made you, again, he said it would make me fuzzy. When I first got put on the drug, after I'd been on it for maybe about a week, I lost the ability to think clearly, to the point where I couldn't finish a sentence without forgetting what I wanted to say. I would get halfway through the sentence and I'd go, and then I'd have to retrace in my mind the thought process I was trying to have, and that could take a while. And sometimes I never made it back to what it was I was trying to say. I would just like, so what I was wondering, uh, and then I'd lose it. Surprisingly enough, being a college student that can't think clearly was not a whole lot of fun, but I got diagnosed literally at the end of my semester. And the only thing I had to do, I dropped a single class, and I actually passed the rest of my classes miraculously. I still don't quite understand how that worked. I eventually got taken off that drug because it wasn't helping my depression, and all it was doing was I was getting the bad side effects. I couldn't think straight. It took me, I don't know, 3 years, roughly. I was on it for maybe a few months. It took me over 3 years to get to the point where I felt like I was in control of my mental faculties again. I lost my ability to play difficult music, because by the time I would read the music and I would translate, dots on a page to notes to fingerings and articulations to what I needed my hands and my mouth to do, the band would be 2 measures ahead. So I lost my ability to play music, which is one of the things that I used to get out of my depression, which didn't help. And about, like I said, after about 3, maybe 3.5 years, I found out that I had regained my ability to play music again. I could think clearly for the most part. So it was, it was a positive thing that I got off of that drug. However, when I get stressed out, or when I get into really bad depressions, the issues I had thinking clearly return. And it's, to be honest, it's a fairly terrifying process, because I can tell when it's happening at first, because it will start with me doing something rather simple and then just stopping in the middle of it and going, what was I doing? Oh yeah. And it's a tiny little thing that probably 1 million people do every single day, where you're doing something, you're like, wait a minute, what was I doing? Oh yeah. And it starts with that, and then it gets worse. Instead of, oh, what was I doing? I actually can't remember, and I'll have to leave the room and go do something else, and then maybe a few hours later it'll come back to me. And then it gets to the point where I stop being able to speak clearly, and I will pause in the middle of sentences, and I will forget words and things like that. And eventually it gets to the point where I just start shutting down completely, to the point where I stop talking to people, I stop taking care of myself. I will curl up in a ball basically and not speak to anyone. That's what's been happening to me over the past few weeks. I'm not going to get into the causes why it's been happening, because some of those are personal and some of those are professional, and there's a lot of different things that are happening that I really don't want to talk about. Well, I would like to talk about them with someone, but putting them in such a public forum could cause a lot more issues than it would solve, if that makes sense. So yeah, I had a really good idea for what I wanted to talk about today, and for the life of me, I can't remember what it was. I can't remember the basic subject matter. I can't remember the specific details I was going to say about it. And I had basically the entire vlog planned out, and it's completely gone. I may remember it in a couple of days. I may remember it literally right after I hit the stop button on my webcam. I may never remember what it was I wanted to talk about. And for someone that for most of their life, I've never been an incredibly strong person. I've never been good at sports. I've never been really fast or anything like that. The thing that has gotten me through most of my life has been my ability to think. I've always been a fairly smart person, and I've always thought faster than most other people around me, and that's really helped me out. It got me into the school jazz band when I was in the 6th grade. It got me accelerated in quite a few of my courses. It's helping me now burn through. I basically went through 2 semesters worth of courses in one. In addition to a major move and starting a brand new job and all this stuff, I was still able to complete the equivalent of 21 credits. Um, Very, very proud that I was able to do that. Um, but when I get stressed out, when I get depressed, I lose all of it, every last bit, and I just get kind of relegated to it's hard to describe, but the one thing about myself that I take the most pride in, and I tend to base a lot of my self-worth on my intellectual abilities, gets taken from me. Um, it's it's indescribable what it's like knowing over the next few weeks, because I feel it happening and I can see it happening, and there's not really a whole lot I can do to stop it, because in general, um, the things that stress me out are the things I don't have control over, and that's why they stress me out. I've gotten to the point where I can deal with a lot of crazy bad stuff happening all at the same time, because that's just I'm completely unmedicated for my depression. I have to find some way to deal with it. And for the most part, I have. But when bad things happen that are outside of my control, that are going to continue to get worse, tends to be the thing that gets to me. You know, something bad happens once, okay, it happens. I can deal with that. Um, but again, I'm a very analytical person. I read people very well, and I can predict future actions based on what people are already doing. And I tend to be in the general ballpark fairly often. I'm not psychic or anything like that, but I'm good at reading signs and interpreting and making guesses on what people will do in relation to certain actions. I read people, and I'm good at predicting what they do. Um, and so a lot of times what happens is it'll start, and then I will kind of go, okay, well, this is starting. Let's see what's going to happen in the future for me. Let's, sit down and kind of try and plan out my next couple of weeks so I can try and avoid this. And then I see that, well, this is going to happen, and then this is going to happen, and this is going to happen, and this is going to happen. And I have to do this, 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 and this. And these are the things that I can control. And so these are the things I need to focus on. And these are all the things that I can't control. And yeah, it's not fun. So yeah, that's what's been happening to me, and it affects everything. It affects my job performance. I've had to have very difficult conversations with former employers where I sit them down and go, "Hi, um, I have diagnosed clinical depression. One of the symptoms of it is I lose my ability to think clearly every so often. So if you see me, doing things that don't make a whole lot of sense, talk to me, ask me what's going on. In general, it probably just means that I'm having a hard time concentrating and I just need to sit down for 5 minutes, take a breather, and then get going again. It's never been something that has caused me to do something bad at work. Like in general, the worst things that happens is it takes me longer to make decisions every so often. And I've lost some sales because of it, because when I sit there trying to speak to a customer and I can't recall information, they think I don't know what I'm talking about, and they just ignore me and won't buy from me. So that's the worst that's ever happened. But it is, when you kind of pride yourself and when your job is to sell things, it's a little bit annoying. So yeah, that's it's been my life recently, and I've been lucky enough that my current job is really stressful. I'm going to be 100% honest. It's unbelievably stressful. There's a lot of changes that we have to make at the store I'm working at. There are a lot of people that are not reacting well to the changes that we're making, and that's difficult. But I've been lucky enough that I have a really nice support group at the store, in my staff, and in my training manager that have been helping me to kind of work through the things that are difficult for me in that. But the thing that I'm noticing the most now is I guess my responsibilities to my YouTube channel and stuff like that. So I kind of wanted to kind of lay it out. It's not that I don't care. You know, it's not that, you know, YouTube is the last thing on my mind or my channels are the last thing on my mind. They're not. I'm actually constantly working on new stuff to make the channel better, to make, you know, my content better. It's quite literally, I can't think about it. I'll sit in front of a camera and I'll just stare at it for a while, and I won't be able to figure out why or what I'm supposed to say or anything like that, and nothing comes up because I can't think. So yeah, that's gonna be all for me today. Sorry this one's a little bit downer, but again, I wanted to kind of fill you guys in on why everything has been so sporadic for the last few weeks to months. With all the changes and all the crap that's going on in my life, I get to the point where my brain shuts down, and I can't do things like this. This is, as much as I plan all of this stuff, like I've said before, I work fairly hard on my vids, and I actually plan, I don't script this because I like the kind of stream of conscious format for vlogging, but I do plan it out rather extensively, and I'll do any research that I feel that I need to do, and I'll have stuff up every so often on my screen so I can reference it when I'm talking. And when I lose my ability to think, there's nothing I can do. My body shuts down, my brain shuts down, and a lot of times I'll just get to the point where I go to bed and I fall asleep, and I hope that in the morning I'll feel better. Sometimes I do, and sometimes I don't. But yeah, so again, that's all for me this week. Not this week, just today. I will see you guys tomorrow for another random vlogging, hopefully on a little bit lighter subject. And yeah, if you guys have any questions, comments, concerns, stuff like that, leave it in the comments. Or tweet me. That always works. All right, so bye-bye.